The war in Israel continues to rage on today. And like seems to happen too many times, the news coming out of Israel today is that the weakest, most powerless people continue to be the biggest bill payers. And that is the women and children of Palestine, who have no help and no defenses, no ability to flee the fighting, no ability to get help, are being killed in large numbers. And today was a spike of a day. Just some egregious numbers that come out, especially in the news this afternoon. You probably did see the headline that at least so far 104 people were killed and 700 wounded when they were mobbed a bunch of supply trucks and relief supply trucks that the Israeli Defense Forces moved in. And you can see these images here. It's really heartbreaking to see this. I mean, it literally looks like ants at a picnic, just swarming over food. But these are people. And look, the reason why this is happening, this is really important to understand, is because even within the Strip, so many of the Palestinian policemen, the people who just kept civil order, are considered as enemy combatants by Israel. So they're killing everyone. That leaves no one to take care of civil order. So it is now broken down. There is literally no authorities. There is no systemic supply or anything else. It's just these food trucks come in. In this place you see right here, it had been announced the previous night that these food trucks were going to come in. So there was a large group of thousands of people that had been gathering for this. And you got to understand, people are literally starting to starve to death now. That is now started to happen. I'm going to touch on that here in a second. But these people are absolutely desperate for food. So they came in, and as soon as these trucks came, they didn't wait for them to even stop. They started jumping on them and to trying to take food off. This one you can see right there, literally as the vehicles are still moving, people are risking their lives to jump up on moving vehicles among all these other people so that they can get any kind of food for their family, because they never know when the next ones are going to come. That's the desperation with which these happen. Now, reports are coming out that Israeli military fired on the crowd, which then started a panic, and many then people were killed in the rush to get away. They literally stampeded some of their own people to death. But you're talking literally 700 people were wounded and 104 have been killed so far, just adding just grief upon grief to the tragedy. Just imagine their family members. They sent some members of their family. Most of these are probably men or kids to get food for their families. And instead they never come back. And then the families still don't get food. It's as bad as you can imagine. Now, like always, the Israeli side has a different view, and I'm going to let you see their view. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. Here's how Daniel Hagari, one of the spokesmen you've seen many times from Israel, here's how he explains what happened.
This morning, the IDF coordinated a convoy to 38 trucks to provide additional humanitarian assistance to the residents of northern Gaza. As these vital humanitarian supplies were making their way towards Gazans in need, thousands of Gazans dispensed upon the trucks. Some began violently pushing and even trampling other Gazans to death, looting the humanitarian supplies. The unfortunate incident resulted in dozens of Gazans killed and injured. The IDF was securing the humanitarian corridor so that the aid convoy could reach its destination in northern Gaza. As you can see in this video, the tanks that were there to secure the convoy sees the Gazans being trampled and cautiously tries to disperse the mob with a few warning shots. When the hundreds became thousands and things got out of hand, the tank commander decided to retreat. Here you can see how cautious they were when they were backing up. I think as a military man, they were backing up securely, risking their own life, not shooting at the mob. No IDF strike was conducted towards the aid convoy. I want to repeat that. No IDF strike was conducted towards the aid convoy. We have been conducting a humanitarian operation of this kind for the last 4 nights without any problem. It's the first night that we had this kind of event.
Now, whether they did or didn't fire on the people, I can't say, of course. There's conflicting information. Some say they did, some say they didn't. I don't know. All I do know is that 104 people are dead. And look, I was a tanker. I was an armored officer earlier in my career while I was still on active duty. And when I see someone tell me that these troopers in a tank were backing up and that they felt threatened and that they were being, risking their own lives to be near a mob, I'm not buying that. Okay. You're in a tank. The mob can't get inside of a tank if they wanted to. And there's no evidence, certainly not in the video that showed any people swarming a tank that would have made them feel dangerous. The tank can just drive away. So I'm not buying that part, but I'll leave the rest of it up to an investigation because I know that's what's coming in. All I can tell you for a fact is that people are starving to death and they were desperate for food. And now 104 people are dead and 700 others are wounded and injured. And this nightmare continues on. Now, look, if you're watching this, you're going to be one of the few. Our normal shows get many thousands of viewers, but every time we put anything up about Israel, there seems like somehow that the numbers go really low because the YouTube algorithms, I don't know what it is, really suppresses those so that they don't go out there. We don't care about that. That's beyond my control. I say all the time that we're unintimidated and uncompromised on bringing you the truth, and that means when it's unpopular. I don't care what the algorithms do, and I don't care if we only get a handful of people here. Look, the fact is that we're going down a road here that is bad for America. It's bad for Israel, and it's catastrophic for the Palestinian people. No one wins. Everyone loses, and the Palestinians lose worst of all. The people who are the most powerless lose the greatest, and that should not be the case. That shouldn't happen. Americans have typically gone overboard and just been the first ones in line to help the people who are distressed, powerless, without any help, starving to death. We're usually the first ones in line. And now instead, we're standing by and making excuses for the people who are doing the killing. And look, I get it, 10/7. The terrorist attack that was perpetrated by Hamas against Israel, 100% unjustified, period. Full stop. That's the case. I've never said anything besides that. Israel had every right to go after Hamas that did this. But it matters a great deal how they go about doing this. So you don't get to just flatten an entire population's ability to live, kill thousands upon thousands of people in the process of doing this and not have so little care about it and then say, well, they shouldn't have been there or whatever, fill in the blank, however you want to say it. It's wrong. I've been in combat situations like this where you had some terrorists in amongst the people. There is a right way to do it. There is an effective way to do it that protects the people and takes care and routes out the enemy. It can be done. We've done it. And we've done it imperfectly, and there were civilian casualties, but it genuinely was collateral damage. This is not collateral damage, that most of which happens. You see the videos. You've seen entire apartment complexes, blocks being wiped off the map. You've seen them being systematically demolished so that no life can live there. That's not an operation that's intelligence-driven where they're doing everything they can for the population. That's just untrue. It's blanket, flat out untrue. I don't care what anyone says that's running this in Israel. It's just not true. I don't care what defenders in America try to claim for the Israelis. It's not true. You can say whatever you want. The video doesn't lie. The casualty count doesn't lie. And listen, let me address one thing because I hear it a lot. A lot of people say, oh, these numbers, there's 25,000 women were killed, women and children have been killed in this. That was reported earlier today, reported by the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. We're going to get to that in just a second. But I hear a lot of people say, that's from the Hamas medical detachment, so you can't trust that numbers. Okay, fair enough. And as far as it goes, that is who it is because it's the only one that operates in there. There is no one else to give us any kind of numbers. But folks, what the actual number is totally irrelevant. I don't care if it's a half that number or if it's double that number. It's unclear because so many of these buildings are getting wiped out and people are trapped inside. No one can count who's in there. The missing are in the tens of thousands right now. So it could be a lot higher than that. But you don't have to have any count. Nobody has to tell you anything. When you see all of these people who are dying, you see all these people their bodies have been wrapped up, and you see entire buildings being wiped out in the middle of the night sometimes when people are killed. You see refugee centers and tents being obliterated. You know that there are large numbers of women and children and men and other innocent people that are being wiped out in that. So don't hide behind that garbage that, oh, we can't count on these numbers, because if it's 25,000 like they claim, or 20,000 or 17,500, it doesn't matter. The number is huge. And what is a fact is that the ability to live in this, whenever this is over, is being systematically wiped out so that the suffering will continue. That's what we should focus on, not about whether the number is exactly right or not. I could care less about the number. We know that it's a massive number no matter what. But let's get back to that number, because that's the one we have today. Now, if you want to accuse the Secretary of Defense of the United States of selling out Hamas misinformation, take care of that on your own. You can do that. But what we're going to do is we're at least going to take his word that this is pretty close to being accurate. Otherwise, why would he say it under oath before the United States Congress? So now I'm going to show you. There was a exchange today between Representative Ro Khanna, who specifically asked the Secretary of Defense how many women and children have been killed in the Gaza Strip. Watch the exchange.
Mr. Secretary, about how many Palestinian women and children have been killed by Israel since October 7th?
It's over 25,000.
Mr. Secretary, last week, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights warned that any transfer of weapon or ammunition to Israel violates international law. About how many precision-guided munitions has the United States given Israel since the beginning of the war?
I don't have that number at my fingertips, but we have endeavored.
Mr. Secretary, it's about 21,000 precision-guided munitions. The head of the World Food Program has said that the Palestinian children are starving. Extremist settler Stomrich, Israel's finance minister, stopped American flour, which our taxpayers paid for to get into Gaza. If Israel again ever stops American-paid aid from getting into Gaza, will you commit to not sending future arms cells?
Again, that's not my decision.
Yeah, ain't my job. Not sure what his job is if that's the case. I'm not sure what we have a Secretary of Defense, but hey, if you want to go to the president, fine. Go to the president, ask him the same question. You're of the same party. That's a Democratic senator or member of the House asking the Secretary of Defense of a Democratic administration. This is not, sharpshooting that you might get from Republican to Democrat, et cetera. There was some other Democratic Republican or House members earlier today also suggesting, hey, let's maybe do some airdrops of food into the Gaza Strip. Maybe we can bring a hospital ship, whatever. They're imploring their president just to do the very base minimum to protect innocent people from being killed on a daily basis. But it seems to be falling on deaf ears. And of course, like you would almost expect, and one of my colleagues actually called this, Dan DePetris, when Secretary of Austin made that statement, he predicted that the Pentagon would walk it back right away. And it wasn't hours later that General Ryder added this.
To clarify, as you highlight, his answer was citing an estimate from the Hamas-controlled health ministry that more than 25,000 total Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. And as you know, and as you've heard us say, we can't independently verify that these numbers are accurate.
So he's trying to hide behind the same thing. Oh, this was the Hamas ministry of whatever, and we can't verify it. Then why did he say it? And by the way, Ryder emphasized that, that was a total casualties. No, it wasn't. The question was how many women and children, and Austin answered that question. He was not saying what is the total number of people killed in the Gaza Strip. That's a separate number. That's somewhere around 33,000, according to the most recent numbers that I've seen. Okay, so we're talking about human beings. We're talking about people who are literally now starving to death. 4 kids starved to death, finally succumbed in the northern part in the Gaza City overnight here. The health officials on the ground there from NGOs and from the other people who are operating it fear that those numbers are going to now start spiking because not enough food is getting in. You heard kind of talk about that some of the Israeli people literally blocked the aid from getting in before. So, we don't need to be given credit because some of it got in, because clearly hardly any of it is getting in, so that they're desperate. Something has to be done pretty quick. And, it used to be a part of just being an American that we cared about the people who were the most powerless. and the people who needed help the most, and that we would go to great lengths to defend them, to protect them, to support them. Instead, we keep making excuses for what Israel's doing. Again, let me repeat, 10/7 was a terrible thing. No caveats. It was a terrorist attack for which the Israeli government deserved to go after the perpetrators, and they still do. But what they don't have the right to do is to just wantonly kill thousands of other people in the process, even people who were completely innocent, had nothing to do with anything. But look, if you don't care about what's right and wrong, if you only care about Israel's security, and I do, by the way, I do care about Israel's security. I also care about all of the civilians in the area, the Palestinians, the Israelis. I care about all of them. I want the war to end for all of them. I want the killing and the bloodshed to end. But if you only care about the Israeli people, if you only care about their security, you want this to stop too. And let me tell you why. First of all, let's look at what Benjamin Netanyahu emphatically said earlier this month, which is something he's been reiterating really throughout this war, and certainly says emphatically now. Notice what he said about his objectives.
We are on our way to that decisive victory. It is in our hands. It's not a matter of perhaps weeks, but it is in a matter of months. The IDF are working systematically, and they will achieve all the objectives of the war. They're going to release all the hostages, eliminate Hamas, and Gaza will no longer be a threat to Israel. I have decided that that is our objective. That is the decision I made at the beginning of this war, and we will not suffice with less.
And as you've seen, we've shown various other clips where he emphasizes he will tell America no, and he'll tell America yes where he has to, but he still wants our money. He still wants our ammunition, but he's going to tell us no. When Biden routinely says, he did again on Sunday, we want a two-state solution. Netanyahu's ambassadors, Netanyahu himself, keep emphatically saying there will be no two-state solution. It would be rewarding terrorism, he said just recently. So he is going to ignore us. He's going to continue doing what he's going to. And he said the other day that there's about 4 battalions of Hamas left, and he wants to go to complete and total victory is the phrase he keeps using there. Folks, that's nonsense. He is absolutely blind with rage, and he is ignorant on what it's going to take to succeed. You cannot kill your way to peace. You cannot go into an area and wipe out an entire culture's way of living and ability to sustain life, kill thousands, wound scores of thousands. The latest numbers are something close to 100,000 have been killed and wounded. I bet that's a low number. When you see the amount of destruction there, it's hard to imagine it's less than that. But it's certainly a massive number, whatever it is. And no matter what the number is, it's going to be nearly impossible for people to have any kind of a life for years to come, however this thing is resolved here. But just imagine, a lot of the Palestinians were extremely angry and frustrated before 10/7, before this terrorist attempt happened. 200, some of them had been killed over the summer, before this past summer, before this war started, and they were hopeless, they were angry, and they felt powerless, that nothing that could be done against the mighty Israeli military defense and the fence that literally kept them imprisoned in there. They were already frustrated to the boiling point then, which bled over on 10/7. Now, let me ask, just being honest, what do you suppose the now somewhere around 2 million of them are going to be feeling once this fighting is concluded, and once Netanyahu proclaims that he has defeated Hamas and that those remaining 4 battalions have been wiped out and he has then killed all the Hamas people? At some point, I'm sure he's going to claim that. What do you think all those people are going to do in response? Are they going to say, okay, well, war's over. Let's just live in tents the rest of our life and be satisfied with that? Because Netanyahu said that he will not let Hamas govern in any way, shape, or form. They won't exist at all in any capacity, political or military, and he won't allow the Palestinian Authority. So right now, an organization, an entity that does not exist will have to somehow start governing the Palestinian Authority. Well, who do you think that the Israelis are going to allow to do that except someone who will do what they tell them, which almost by definition means that people aren't going to listen to them? Unless you give the people some hope and some reason to think that they have motivation and incentive to work and cooperate with Israel, they're not going to. The desperation they had before 10/7 is going to be magnified immeasurably on the other side of what Netanyahu claims is a military victory. So the anger and the hatred that boiled into a terrorist act will only be so much worse. How does he think that's going to bring him peace? How do you think, if you support Israel blindly, do you think that's going to bring a good outcome? It's not going to. Whatever victory that Netanyahu claims, it won't even be Pyrrhic because it won't be real at all. It won't be any victory. You'll have killed a great many people, but you won't have done anything to get rid of the underlying conditions that cause the insecurity for the state of Israel. It will be heightened. And of course, now then you've got all the people in the region, all their co-religionists and other Arabs are their hatred of Israel is just off the charts. It's going to take a generation to work down once you stop the problem and stop the killing. This could get worse. Right now, the idea that Egypt could actually turn against Israel seems completely unrealistic, or that Turkey would make good on a lot of Erdogan's threats and actually take action against Israel. It seems unrealistic. Or Jordan, who's a good friend of America's, their king recently warned that if Israel continues on, especially if they go and do attack into Rafah, that there's going to be a potential catastrophe. Now, everyone ignores all of that and disregards it. They just kind of roll their eyes and say, yep, the Arabs have been saying that forever. They're not going to take any action. Maybe it does work out that way. I can't say with any certainty at all, but I can tell you it's not a good bet. And to continue pushing a people the way that they're being pushed across the region right now, and to think that they're never going to take action against Israel is not a safe bet. And even if they don't, that's not building security for you. That's not diminishing the risk that the people of Israel will have to face going forward. It's only going to just keep it in place, keep the possibility that more terrorist events continue to happen. That's the reality of it. I care a great deal about Israel. I'm a born-again believer. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, who was a Jew, who grew up in that area, and I revere it highly. I think I've mentioned here before, I was actually planning on going there just a couple of months from now when all this broke up. So my wife and I have lost that opportunity for now anyway. But it's something that I desire. But I love the people there, and I want them so much to have peace to where they can live without worrying about rockets are going to fall on their heads in Israel. But I also want the Palestinian people to have peace, because without the Palestinian people having peace and having some kind of chance at a life, then no one in Israel is going to have peace. It's going to stay this constant problem like that. You can't solve one problem without solving the other. And if you don't solve this problem, you don't solve this problem either. It's a package deal, whether anyone wants it or not. There is no path. I don't care what anyone thinks. There is no path to a stable situation for Israel that doesn't include peace for Palestine, period. I don't care how much you want it. It's just logic. It's common sense that you can't subjugate a people and kill that many of them and think you're going to get peace in the middle of that sea of chaos for this other people. It's just not going to happen. So if America wants to do Israel a favor, if you want to end the suffering and the threat of the security for Israel, then you need to support ending this war as fast as possible, an immediate ceasefire, start working on the underlying conditions that led to the war in the first place, and get the help for the people and give them some reason to have hope for the future, without which nothing good happens for anyone in the entire region. That is your deep dive for today. Listen, I know a lot of you are not going to like this one, and I'm sorry. That's just how it is, because I'm telling you the truth, whether it's ugly or good. But pay attention, because in the truth that I'm giving you, there's a path out. There is hope, but it's one that's going to take a great deal of courage by our leaders, which a few of them are starting to step up with. But until we get the one at the top, the president, until he gets the message and starts taking action, it's going to remain an aspiration. I hope that day comes. I certainly do pray for it. I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray for the peace for the entire region. They all deserve it. Thank you, and we'll see you next episode of Daniel Davis Deep Dive.